ETV Africa News at this hour.
Thank you, Waziri. My name is Khalwale. I stand here on behalf of the County of Kakamega, but more importantly, on behalf of the Chairman of the Committee on Energy in the Senate, Dr. Odinga. We want to demonstrate our commitment to safety as a measure that will make the future of energy more acceptable to the people of Kenya, especially in the rural areas where people do not know technical issues like who is qualified, who is competent, and so on and so forth. So I thank you, Minister, and I hope that, as we have told you earlier, that you will take advantage of our commitment as the Senate to make your task successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Asanteni.
So in that context, where are you distribution of citizens to households and who is doing it? The second question is the wave tiff between counties and KPLC, which is exposing consumers to higher power bills. What is your means to doing about it? And finally, is your means to doing anything to speed up the lifting of IPPs?
You know, today I'd rather we focus on the matter of car safe mtaani. Yeah, and as you have seen for yourselves, we have essentially launched this very, very ambitious program, this campaign that is being spearheaded by EPRA, but with support of the entire ministry and its entities. We are hopeful that this campaign is going to help us address the issue of safety in the entire supply chain for LPG and petroleum and electricity. That is basically why we are here today. And we are confident that from here going forward, a lot of confidence. You heard clearly. Going forward, we shall be dealing with such cases of malpractices, of irregularities, illegalities, very, very ruthlessly, but in accordance with it. And EPRA is more than equal to the task. Okay? So the matter of the IPPs is a matter that is under consideration very actively by Parliament, and we are hopeful that Parliament in its wisdom is going to provide a solution in the fullness of time. So thank you very much. Can we ask the parliamentarian to speak?
Yes, a car safe mtaani is not a new concept. It is something that the regulator is doing at the second time of asking. We had car safe mtaani 1, and this is car safe mtaani, as I'd call it, version 2.0. The mandate of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority is quite wide, but today we are here specifically to speak to our mandate of public education, advocacy, consumer protection, and enforcement. As part of that mandate, we are required to ensure that we keep the public, the industry stakeholders on the straight and narrow, but more importantly, for us to be able to educate the public, because we, as the regulator, as has been said before, we don't have the resources to be in every village, every home, every office when it comes to enforcing the provisions of the law, which is the Energy Act 2019 and the Petroleum Act 2019. So what we're looking to do is to, as we've said, build a coalition of the willing, build a coalition for safety by bringing together a whole of country approach. You always hear of a whole of government approach where government agencies are working together, because some of the challenges is that you have government entities working in silos. But today we don't want only to bring government entities, we want to bring civil society, we want to bring private sector, we want to bring the community, so that then all of us as a country, we can come together to ensure that we are able to keep Kenyans safe as we utilize energy and petroleum products. Today we are here to sign a commitment or to launch Car Safe Mtaani version 2.0. We are today here to have a national workshop, bringing together all the stakeholders to put together what are the issues, what are the challenges, what are the proposed solutions, what is the information that we need to disseminate. When we're able to bring all this together, then in another 2 weeks, we shall be calling the country again to then launch the campaign. One important thing that we are doing is to be able to align all our stakeholders towards the common goal of ensuring that Kenyans are safe as we do business, as we utilize these energy products, that Kenyans are safe. The big challenge has been information dissemination. A lot of Kenyans, as has been said before, lack the understanding on the do's and the don'ts. What we want is to be able to disseminate that information so that then EPRA is not only wielding the stick, but in enforcement, but ensuring that we're able to educate the populace, educate the country on safety what they should do, what they should not do, when they see a malpractice, where they should report, how to address those issues.
And how does this marry into the national energy policy, of which right now I think is in the public participation phase? But safety, how does it marry into a national energy policy?
Well, in terms of the national energy policy, which is now under review, there was a national energy policy in 2015. This is currently being reviewed to align it to the provisions of the Energy Act 2019 and the Petroleum Act 2019, because you recognize that the policy of 2015 came before the legislation, and the legislation came with certain amendments that were not there in the Energy Act of 2006. So what is currently ongoing is a review of the policy to align it to the two legislation. When you speak to the policy and what is the nexus between safety and policy and uptake, is that when the product is not safe, then you have the public shying away from utilization of that commodity. A lot of the times when you go to the informal settlements, people will tell you that they don't want to utilize gas because it's prone to explosion, it is prone to fire, but they don't understand that there's a safe utilization of LPG. So by us educating the public, one, we are preventing injury, two, we are preventing death, and we're increasing uptake of this cleaner and greener products, energy products in the market.
Lastly for me, safety also in some way marries and comes close to affordability. And as part of the ongoing reviews that we're seeing in the energy sector, there is a review at play that potentially we'll see fuel prices go a little bit higher by 7 shillings. Talk to us about that and whether that jump will be exponential, phased in regards to affordability.
Yeah, I think I spoke to that yesterday during the stakeholder engagement we had with the media. But before that, in terms of affordability, when these goods are safe and when we increase uptake, because one of the big issues in our country and particularly in sub-Saharan Africa is an issue of energy poverty. If you look at the per capita consumption per person of energy in Kenya or in sub-Saharan Africa as compared to the global north, we are energy poor. So really, when you have safety, you have awareness, you are able then to increase the uptake so that then, because energy is the driver of the economy, when you have access to energy, you're able to do more things as a person and eventually improve the economy. So really, the first question should not be an issue of affordability, it should be an issue of access. Then we come to the issue of affordability. On the question that you've asked around the review, what we've called the cost of service study, which the law requires us to do every 5 years, we undertake it both for electricity and for petroleum. So we've undertaken a study, we have done it for the last 14 months, we have consulted far and wide, we've involved all our stakeholders, including the public, including the executive. But as we go to implement it, we will ensure that we implement it, it should not have an impact to increase the cost of the product itself. But it is really important for us to be able to make those adjustments so that then we reflect the realities of the pricing in the entire value chain. The last review was in 2018. Some segments, for instance, the transport segment, has not seen a review from 2010. So you should ask yourself, what is the price of diesel? Because when you're transporting diesel from point A to point B, and the last price was in 2010, you're now speaking at the price being almost 3x. And we are hurting businesses that are delivering product to ourselves as a population and to the economy. So if that value chain of transportation breaks down, that means then we don't have access to the product. So it's important we balance the interest, and that's why we as the regulator are mandated by the law to balance the interests of investors, balance the interests of consumers, and balance the interests of government. This is the executive and also the legislature that puts together the laws that we are then required to then implement. So it's really striking that balance to ensure that we have the access and to ensure that we have a tariff that is just and reasonable, that ensures that those entities in the value chain maintain financial integrity. So it's a real balance. But even as we implement this, we are cognizant of the public, and we will be ensuring that even as we implement in phases, because it will be a phased and gradual approach, that we don't impact the prices negatively. Thank you.
One question from me. The CS as a spider. Has anyone in this space previously used SIM cards?
Well, I think the first thing is, as you've seen today, is that there is a coalition already being built. And the coalition is not only with EPRA, and there's an appreciation that EPRA cannot do it all. We need a whole of society approach, not only a whole of government approach. But to your question in terms of how do we deal with this, as I've said earlier on, the Energy Act 2019 and the Petroleum Act 2019 has very stiff penalties. I keep saying that other than probably the Sexual Offences Act in this country, it is the only legislation that prescribes minimum fines and penalties. But again, because we are a country governed by the rule of law, we have to follow due process. When we undertake an administrative action, to either suspend or revoke a license, we must undertake it in accordance with the Fair Administrative Action Act. We have to ask you to show cause why we should not either suspend or revoke your license and take you through a due process. Ultimately, if then you're involved in a malpractice, we then have to work with the competent authorities. We do have a very good collaboration with the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions and also with the National Police Service, so that then we're able then to take you to a competent court to be able then to adjudicate the matter, and we're able then to prosecute you. But again, because we are governed as a country of rule of law, we have to take you through the process. And that is why this campaign is very important, that we bring the regulator, EPRA, who's mandated in the law to enforce, work with the state agencies that have the tools of the state, that's the National Police Service, and also work with the Director of Public Prosecutions, who was present with us today here, and we work very closely with to ensure that they're able to run the whole hog, to ensure that we actually get prosecutions. And again, the judiciary, and we are working also collaboratively with the judiciary, so that then they can have an appreciation of the provisions of the Energy Act and Petroleum Act 2019, also have an appreciation of the technical nuances of the energy and petroleum sectors, but more importantly, to understand the economic loss that an individual or an organization can cause to the economy if we allow them to then do what they are doing illegally.
Do you maybe perhaps on the desk have a number of some of these people are targeting, or have you even mapped out the country or the region on this kind of aspect? Yes, we have mapped out, and I think that, again, you know, when you're talking to matters enforcement and matters security, I don't think it's proper to give you the numbers, but yes, we've mapped out the country. There are some areas that are hotspots that continue to recur, as you know, even as you drive on the A104 from Mombasa all the way to Malaba and to Busia. You all know where we call them shambas are, where the truck drivers are stopping and the siphoning of product. It is known to the public, and that's why we want to then partner with the public for them to inform us, but also for them to be able to ensure, because a lot of those activities are being conducted by their business partners, by their relatives, their friends, their cousins. If they appreciate the challenges when it comes to health and safety with these illegal activities, then it is not only EPRA or the state security agencies that will be enforcing against them, but also the community will come together to ask those people to stop those unscrupulous businesses. So should you say probably major highways?
No, it's all over. It's all over the country. It's all over the country. So it's really not only on one, because that's one aspect of illegal or siphoning of petroleum products. We have illegal LPG. We have vandalism. As the PS was speaking about export of copper and aluminium, yet we are not a mining country. So all those is vandalism of critical infrastructure that is sabotaging the economy.
And when the DJs here, Tesla partners here, I don't know if you're aware of what happened to the inequality policy that was supposed to be. You advocate a lot about
Yes.
inequality. What happened to the policy? Is it stuck somewhere?
No. It is work in progress. We are the tip of the spear as a regulator. We did in March of 2023 approve the e-mobility tariff, which is a subsidized tariff of 16 shillings per kilowatt hour peak and 8 shillings per kilowatt hour off peak. The government has done its part to remove tax, introduce tax incentives rather, for e-vehicles, for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, for batteries, and that's why you're seeing a lot of uptake of two- and three-wheelers and vehicles coming into the market. So in terms of facilitation, we're already facilitating that, but working collaboratively as the regulator with the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and also with the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure is to work on this policy. The policy on mobility is being driven by the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, the NTSA, and we are working collaboratively because we provide the fuel. Today, when you import a vehicle, whether it's an ICE car, a combustion engine vehicle, you would go to NTSA to be licensed. You would not come to EPRA to be licensed. Our bit is the fuel bit. So whether it is fossil fuel or it is a kilowatt, it is regulated by us. But we're working in a whole of government approach so that then the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure works together with the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and us as a regulator to be able to advance this policy. It's not new, as I said. This is version 2.0. We had the first campaign the year before last, and we're now continuing with the journey. Because a lot of times you don't want to run a campaign back to back. You want to come up with a concept, be able to develop the terms of reference, be able then to implement, get feedback, see what has worked, what has not worked, then repurpose, retool, and then do it again. Well, I don't think that's correct. The issue of no uptake of LPG is price, because government has introduced incentives. If you look at our energy and statistics report of last year and the year before, we can see an increase in LPG. I saw one of the journalists write an article that despite the price, you've seen an increase in uptake of LPG. I think the question here is not on price. It's an issue of access and affordability. Do you have the cylinder? Because the cylinder can be the barrier to entry. It's not the issue of the gas and the ability to pay as you go. So it's really not an issue of a barrier to entry on the price. But the government, as I've said, is looking at implementing the LPG growth strategy that involves putting LPG into the open tender system of procurement so that we can benefit from economies of scale through procurement. Also, the introduction of infrastructure, primary infrastructure at import level, and introducing incentives for private sector to then implement the LPG growth strategy, providing cylinders in homes and also into schools. So really it's not an issue of pricing, but we need to be able as a regulator to ensure that we encourage uptake.
You mentioned